When you look at this painting, what do you think it's trying to say? What if I told you it was called Saturn devouring his son? Does that change anything? And what if I told you the artist, Francesco Goya, painted it directly onto his dining room wall while he was sick, deaf, and alone, watching his country descend into chaos? Does that shift your perspective? For a long time, I believed intent was everything. Interpretation was just a flashlight helping us search for the artist's meaning. And then I watched the ending of The Lobster. The ending was ambiguous, so open-ended that every interpretation flipped the movie into something else entirely. So I wondered, what was Yorgos Lanthimos trying to say? What was the message, and why didn't he just say it? So I started to dig, seeing interpretation after interpretation, and eventually, I found Lanthimos himself explaining the intent. And what I found was kind of nothing. Yes, The Lobster is about love and societal pressure, but the absurdity, the surreal world building, and that ambiguous ending, that wasn't meant to deepen the message. It was a stylistic choice, a way of subverting filmmaking. And yet, even knowing that, it still meant something to me. Something beyond what was written, beyond what was intended. And that's when I stopped thinking of interpretation as a flashlight, and started thinking of it as a mirror. So I'll ask again, is this really Saturn devouring his son? Or just a portrait from a man unraveling at the end of his life? Does it really represent the crumbling of Spain? Or just the perceived failure of Goya? We'll never know, it was discovered after his death. But does that matter? When we look up the meaning of a movie, we don't search for what people think. We search for the right answer, as if interpretation itself has become a dirty word, something too subjective to be valid.
What has 12 million eyes? 190.
But even if people agree on the message, how they get there can be wildly different. Maybe they picked up on things that weren't intentional, or maybe they missed key components. Because even when we're close, most of the time, we're still just interpreting. Unless the creator directly tells us, the intent is nearly impossible to pin down. And yet, we still try to find the right answer. And no film shows us better than Room 237. Room 237 is a documentary about Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, where people claim to crack the film's secret code. Theories range from the Holocaust
So that struck me. Why a German typewriter?
to Kubrick implying he helped fake the moon landing.
Stanley Kubrick was involved with faking the Apollo moon landing.
But those theories rely on intent. Kubrick had to deliberately plant those clues. They're still chasing for that right answer, not their answer. They're not searching for meaning, they're searching for permission. So why does there have to be a right answer? Who's to say we can't find our own meaning even if it wasn't put there? Me. I'm to say that. Okay, well, maybe not me specifically, but someone does. It's a debate for a reason. Roland Barthes wrote about this in The Death of an Author. He argued that once a work is released into the world, the author's intent dies with it. Meaning belongs to the audience now. It's a liberating idea, because just like we see faces and clouds or sadness and surrealism, we also see what we want to see, which can lead to beautiful accidents of meaning. In The Rehearsal Season 2, Nathan Fielder realizes his show resonates with autistic viewers.
Representation of the way they think, even though that was never my intent.
But unintended doesn't mean untrue. In fact, sometimes being wrong can be more impactful than being right. And that's where Barthes truly had a point. That is, until you start to realize what a death of an author actually means. And like most liberating ideas, it has consequences. Sometimes what we want to see isn't what we need to see. Like people who idolize Patrick Bateman from American Psycho, or think 1984 is anti-socialist. Even though Orwell literally was one, the book made this very clear. And at some point, it stops being interpretation and starts being distortion. Distortion that reshapes meaning until it never challenges us, until it only says what we already believe, or worse, until it becomes a tool, a way to use art as a weapon, until it's no longer art, just propaganda in disguise. That's why this debate will never die. Some people don't want to be told that they're wrong. Others want to guard the gate with only the one right answer. But maybe we already stumbled into a middle ground without even realizing it. Most people agree that The Shining probably isn't Kubrick's moon landing confession. And most accept that the rehearsal can feel deeply personal, even if that wasn't the intent. There's a gray area, a balance, a space where both things can be true. We want art to speak to us, but sometimes we're the ones speaking through it. And sometimes when we really do experience a death of an author, this is what we're left with. A painting with no title, no answers. Just the question of what it all means. And what if that is the point? Meaning was never supposed to be something we're handed. Maybe it's something made to be sent into the void in hopes of an echo. But that's just my interpretation. And maybe that's enough.